Due to the interconnected network of relationship between living species and their habitats, environmental management involves the management of all components of the biophysical environment, both living and non-living. Unfortunately, gradual and sudden environmental changes occurring in our world today have resulted to substantial human movement and displacement and vice versa. In order to understand this current trend, here is Dr. Jocelyn C. Del Mundo, a professor from UP Manila, Department of Behavioral Science.
First, what is migration? Who can be considered as migrants?
Migration refers to one of the three major processes in demographic studies. The two others are fertility, mortality, and the third is migration. Migration basically refers to change in residence or movement. You have local migration and you have international migration. Who can be considered migrants? Anybody who changes his or her residence.
Population of a country basically consists of migrants and non-migrants. Non-migrants are the native residents of the country. In contrast, migrants are those who transferred residence either permanently or semi-permanently. Migration are of two kinds, namely, internal migration and external migration. Internal migrants can be further classified into in-migrants and out-migrants. In-migrants are people moving into one place from another within a nation, while out-migrants are people moving out of one place to another within a nation.
What causes migration?
There are several factors that causes migration. The classic theory by Everett Lee, the push-pull theory, mayroon ka mga advantages and disadvantages from the area of origin to the area of destination. Kasi change na eh. You factor in the equation place and time. So, umalis siya, itong araw na ito, bumalik din siya nung gabi na yon, hindi yun migration. Okay. Normally, if it would take several months, yun ang migration. What causes it? Several things. From personal to family to societal reasons. For example, peace and order. Kaya sila umalis doon. Magulo. Lumipat sila ng place. Personal. Nakakita siya ng napangasawa sa Ilocos from Metro Manila. Lumipat siya doon. By virtue of, say, family, nag-relocate sa Canada. So, that's international migration. Kasama yung anak. Job related. So, educational related. Taga Batanes, natanggap na kapasa halimbawa sa UP. So, nag-grade na siya. And then finally, dito na rin nag-asawa.
What factors affect migration patterns?
The same things that I mentioned. Basically, when you talk of patterns, series of moves. You have to take into consideration, iti-trend mo yan, iti-chart mo. So, you're able to establish patterns. Mayroon pa tayong tinatawag return migrants. Tapos bumalik pa ulit. So, kailan siya nag-move? Every 3 years, lipat siya. Like, yung mga OFW, they are migrants, but they seem to establish trends. Saan sila papunta? Every 3 years, balik. Every 5 years, depende sa contract. So, migration patterns, napaka-complex yan. What factors affect migration patterns? The same thing. Basically, ang leading kasi is economic reasons pa din. Kaya nag-make ng patterns of moves. But once you're settled, because you're financially stable, I don't think you'd like to go back to where you came from. Otherwise, you move to a better place. So that's another pattern of movement again.
Aside from this, migrants also consider the advantages and disadvantages of staying versus moving, as well as factors such as distance, travel cost, travel time, modes of transportation, terrain, and cultural barriers.
Is environmental degradation a cause or consequence of human migration, particularly in developing countries like the Philippines?
It can be both, because there are in-migrants to the place na hindi sila marunong pangalagaan yung resources yung kalikasan. For example, Mindanao used to be considered one of the frontiers. Palawan is also one of the frontier regions. Up north, may mga frontier, meaning virgin forested pa sila, yet when migrants go there, they abuse. So, they are a factor for environmental degradation. People have experienced like environmental calamities in this area. Mayroon ng landslide, mudslide, nalahar halimbawa, naundoy halimbawa, na landslide halimbawa doon sa Ormoc sa Leyte many years back. So, nag-migrate sila. So, pwedeng two-way effect yun eh. Ikaw umalis ka sa place because your environment has been deteriorating but not by your own making, with other people and because of natural calamities.
There has been little consensus between researchers about the relationship between environmental change and migration. As Shirk 1993 points out, the research literature on environmental migration usually falls only into two broad categories. First, work done by minimalists who suggest that the environment is only a contextual factor in migration decisions. And second, work done by maximalists who claim that the environment directly causes people to be forced to move.
When is migration positive or negative in the context of environmental management?
It can also be both, just like what I said. Because some have turned geographical niches or areas into really something very beneficial to them, to their existence. So as they adapt to the society, they also adapt to their environment. So pinapangalagaan nila talaga yan. Doon sila nakahanap ng kabuhayan nila. So if you think on that line, positive yun. Alagaan nila yung coastal areas halimbawa. Alagaan nila yung kabundukan halimbawa. That will be their source of living for the next so many years if they don't have any plan of migrating to another place or going back to the place of origin. No? But there are those din na totally insensitive to the environment and insensitive to the needs of the next generation. They can totally this environment. So again, I said it's both.
What are the potential changes in the interaction between the people and the environment that may accompany migration?
Sociological behavioral aspect ito. No? Na, kasi sabi ko nga, madalas sinasabi ko, when you migrate, you will not just be adapting to your environment, but in the same manner, what? You will also be adapting to what? The community. And the community includes the environment, the infrastructure. Higit sa lahat, includes what? Active, warm body participants, the individual, the people who are there already. So, yun yung greatest challenge pag hindi ka na-welcome sa community na yon. At kung medyo brusko ka sa paggamit ng mga resources doon na mayroon ng nangunguna sa paggagamit because you're a migrant eh. Unless, doon ka sa pristine at doon ka sa talagang frontier na location. Halimbawa, the Spratly or Kalayaan Islands, yung pinadala yung unang couple doon, they had the entire geographical area to themselves. So, walang pwedeng magsabi na wag nyo itong gawin, ito ang gawin ninyo, ito ang magandang gawin, hindi ito pwedeng gawin kasi sila yung una doon eh. So there's little much sociological interaction and so there is little also sociological adaptation. Pero pag when you go and transfer to a place na nandun na, established na lahat. Like in Metro Manila, for example, we have to realize that the truth of the matter is madami pa rin immigrants sa Metro Manila. They will not just be adapting to the environment, sanitation, but to the people. Like, kung nagtatrabaho sila, workforce, ang kakalabanin nila. So, ganun din in various municipalities and provinces for that matter. The migrants will have to really adapt to the system of the community, sociologically speaking. So, mas mabigat yung kanilang gagawing pakikisama, pakikitungo, pag-adapt.
How does our government respond to migration pressures in our environment?
Well, marami namang ginagawang pag-aaral. Patuloy pa rin namang mga iba't ibang ahensya ng gobyerno. Like they say, ang tadtad at bugbog talaga na place na pinupuntahan ng migrants ay ang Metro Manila. And we've experiencing the consequence or the after effect of the influx of migrants as seen in what? The floods, the traffic, indirectly, because they will always go back to how do these migrants dispose of their waste. See? Tayo nga mga taga rito na, minsan pumapalpak pa din. Lalo na kayo mga taga-probinsya, may alam kaya yan sa the concept na ang mga plastic ay hindi na matutunaw. Yung mga ganun, maraming dapat alamin eh. It's not really a matter of, kasi migrant ka, ganyan, pabigat ka, no? Dapat i-strengthen ng government ang advocacy on the proper ways. That's just one. And of course, the land carrying capacity, yung space per square kilometer, parang density, dense na masyado tong place na ito eh.
There are 5 ways on which the government can intervene to address environmental problems such as pollution. First is through moral suasion. For example, government leaders can make public announcements that detail the way in which they would like people to behave. An example of which is the government's Bantay Ibon, Iwas Bird Flu Tayo slogan. Next is through direct production of environmental quality. The government can initiate programs that undo environmental degradation, such as planting of trees. It must be noted though that this is viewed largely as an ameliorative action only. Aside from this, our government could design pollution prevention programs by innovating technologies that produce less waste. The government can also impose regulations that place constraints on the behavior of households and firms that are deemed to be environmentally destructive. Lastly, our government can provide economic incentives to entice people to coincide their self-interest with the social interest. Examples of this include pollution taxes, pollution subsidies, marketable pollution permits, deposit refund systems, and bonding and liability systems.
Is the government successful in consolidating and rationalizing environmental management efforts from both migrants and residents?
I cannot say whether successful ang government, but you yourselves, amongst yourselves, can very well say na what has happened to our environment in Metro Manila, with or without migrants. We cannot totally attribute it to in migrants, hindi. With or without the migrants, we will still be confronting kasi wala man ako nakikitang comprehensive plan from the government that has been addressing the problem of waste management and flood control.